Personal struggles are inevitable as we move through life, but the willingness to ask for help and conversely be of service to others enables us to work through those rough times. Nobody embodies this more than Purple Heart recipient Omar "Crispy" Avila. This is the No Excuse to Miss podcast. Welcome to the No Excuse to Miss podcast. I am your host, Scott Volquartsen, and this week's guest is inspirational as they come. He's been through the unthinkable with having more than 70% of his body burned, given a 33% chance of survival, and it took more than 70 surgeries before he was ever discharged from the hospital. But yet, as he says in his own words, never give up, take each day we have alive and make the best of it. He recently released a book called Under My Skin, which is absolutely incredible. I read it in about 2 nights. So welcome to the show, Omar "Crispy" Avila. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for coming on. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and then after I read your book, I was even more inspired.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks for the invite.
Well, thank you. So for those, I think a lot of our audience knows some of your background and some of your story, but for those that don't, can you give just a quick overview of like kind of your background?
Yeah. So recently, before we dropped the book, I hadn't really talked about me being born in Mexico a lot till, finally the book came out. But I was born in Mexico. I was raised in Brownsville, Texas, which is South Texas, south as it gets. I mean, it's pretty much North Mexico, to be honest with you. Grew up down there, played football, did, the whole all-American lifestyle, played football, dated cheerleaders and, all that crazy stuff. And then decided to join the military after 9/11. I became a U.S. citizen 2 weeks before 9/11 happened. And ultimately it's what made me want to join the Army. And deployed and was injured, got hit by an IED, suffered burns to 75% of my body, 3rd and 4th degree burns. Have had about 105 or 6 surgeries now. I can't even remember anymore.
Wow.
As a result of it, had a right leg amputation below the knee. And then just kind of been an avid hunter, been very, very lucky to be in the 2A space, to work with a bunch of amazing companies like yourselves, and just kind of living life to the fullest, and not living just for me, but for those who didn't get to make it back on my deployment and those who suffer every single day. I hope to be a beacon of light for those who want to look and ask for help but are afraid. And if you're one of those listening, all I have to tell you is asking for help is not a sign of weakness; it's a sign of strength.
And that was one thing I took from your book, is how many people and family members that you relied on and your support system.
Yeah, it took a village. A lot of people like to literally look at me and be like, look what you accomplished, look where you're at, like, how do you do it? It hasn't always just been me. It's been a village, to be honest with you. Right out the get-go, it was the doctors, the nurses, friends, my parents, being there for me 100%. My brother, my sister, they dropped their lives and came to my aid right away. And it's something that I'm very prideful being Mexican-American, is that we are very family oriented. If one's hurting, we're all hurting, and we all come together and we try to make it work and go from there, and show each other support. So I feel like that was a big key to my recovery, to my mentality, to where I'm at today, is that I was able to rely on people and push forward. It just hasn't been me. It's been a village.
And you can tell that as you read through the book. And one thing that struck me is I never knew that you had aspirations to play football at the college level.
Yeah. So
how did because that was kind of the American dream. You guys came over from Mexico. You were going to go play college football. How did your family react when you said, after 9/11 that I'm going to go serve in the military?
So yeah, that was definitely one of those things, as soon as we moved to this country, I think I was about 9 years old. football was always on TV, and I always heard like all the kids at school, wearing jerseys and talking about football and this and that. And being here in Texas, I by default I became a Cowboys fan, and I started learning about football, and I started getting interested. And my dad was like, "If you want to play, play." And I've always been a bigger kid. I mean, I was 6'2", about 205 as a ninth grader.
Wow.
So, yeah, and being Mexican, we're not that tall, but my that side of the family, they're pretty tall. And so it always interested me. It was always something that I wanted to chase. I felt like playing football and potentially making it to the NFL, I could have helped my family, overcome some struggles and whatnot. So that ultimately was my goal. It was to get at that level. And by my sophomore, junior year, I was ranked number 4 in the state of Texas as a defensive end. So I was moving pretty quick up there. I was being, scouted by a bunch of universities. And then 9/11 happened. And, when 9/11 happened, I was a sophomore. And that was always in the back of my head. I was always thinking about it because I had just became a U.S. citizen that year. And it was one of those things that I made my promise to myself. I said, I'm an American now, and I'm the oldest of 3. I want to go fight. My father served in the military as well. He was a tanker during the first Gulf War. So always seeing his pictures around the house, and he kind of hardly ever talked about his military service, but it was always there, and we always knew that he had probably served. So that was kind of the inspiration for me to join. And when I told my father, he was like, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad, I can come visit, the football thing after my 4 years." And my dad said, "Okay." My mom was a little more on the upset side of it because she wanted me to be the first one to graduate from college in our family. So that's what her aspirations for me was, for me to graduate from a university and have a degree and put it up on the wall and whatnot. But she quickly realized that this was a passion and something that I wanted to do. Because I told her, I was like, "Look, I want to go fight the bastards that did this to us. Like, we're American, and it's my duty to do it." I was like, "If I don't go, my brother's gonna go, or my sister's gonna go. Like, let me go." So it was a conversation that we had, and they were ultimately okay with it at the end of the day when I left.
And like I said, a lot of my questions will be based kind of on the book, but I don't want to give too much away because I think everybody owes it to themselves to read it because it's phenomenal. Why did you decide to write it now? Was it to try to help other people? Because the one theme I got throughout that entire book is you always put other people ahead of yourself.
It's been in the works for about 10 years, to be honest with you, maybe 12. It's something that I've always wanted to do, but I always put it in the back burner. I always felt like, me sharing my experiences weren't good enough, or I don't know. I just, you kind of get wrapped up in your own head when you want to come out with a book, because it's kind of those things you feel like you're, tooting your own horn, I guess, in a sense. It's just like, look at me. But ultimately, what caused it is I've lost more friends at home than I did during the war. And just sitting around campfires and, all these amazing places that I've been able to go and share my experiences with other people. Kind of every single person was like, "Why haven't you written a book? Why haven't you written a book?" It was a constant question every time I left an event. And, I looked at my wife and I was like, "You think I should do this?" And she was like, "Well, honey, like, I think you should. You've had an epic life up until now." Like, she's like, "Yeah, you've been through some things and here's where you're at now." She's like, "A lot of people don't go through this. And I think it's an experience that you need to share with others, because not everybody comes out at the end of the tunnel, sane and being able to inspire others and having the platform that you have and being in the industries that you are." So I literally sat down and I was like, "You know what, you're right." And Nick Irvin and I were doing a video with Demolition Ranch at his place, and afterwards we went and had lunch, and we were just kind of talking, and I was like, Nick, like, what do you think, brother? And he goes, I'll be at your house tomorrow, bringing my recorder, and we're going to do this. So he ghost wrote the book. We had endless sessions talking about life. And I'll be honest with you, Scott, this book could have been at least 500 pages, but we toned it down a little bit just for the sake of that. So yeah, we worked on it really, really hard, went back and forward on renditions, and just kind of put it out there in like 5 months. I think it's kind of what it took us to, because I had already written a lot of it. He just cleaned it up. And then we're like, well, are we doing this? And he's like, do you want to do this? And I'm like, well, are we ready? He's like, well, yeah. And at that point, my buddy David Lopez, who's an amazing photographer, videographer, called him up, and I was like, look, dude, this is my vision of what I want to do with my hands and the Purple Heart and the flag behind it and whatnot. And I just gave him an idea. He took it. He sent it back, and when I saw it, I was like, "This is a book cover, Nick. Let's do this, bro. Let's put this book out there." And that's how it came about.
Well, awesome. Was it hard to like relive some of those events as you took him through it, or had you told the story enough times to people that?
It's to me, I feel like it's very therapeutical every time I tell my story. I feel like there's a weight lifted off my shoulders. Not only that, two individuals, two of my really good friends died that day. And every time I get to share the name Harkey or Campos or Catterton or Fleming, the guys that were in the vehicle with me, it plants a seed in people's, and they remember that name. And if I can have one person out of a room out of 1,000 remember Campos's name or Harkey's name, to me, that's doing them justice and having them remember that name and keeping their name alive till God knows who or when.
And Campos is the one that you credited him with possibly saving your life, because he kind of brought you back to after the IED detonated.
Yeah, he did. He definitely was a key instrumental thing, because at that point I had kind of given up. And like I mentioned in the book, in the infantry world, there's no such thing as, you get injured and you come home and you live somewhat of a normal life. That was not in my plans. It was either you come home alive or you come home dead. There's no in between. So at that point, I was just making peace with God. And as I was talking to God, he grabbed me and was like, you need to get out of the truck. And then, I kind of snapped out of it, and I was able to get up on the gun and start kind of giving some support fire. And then, everything else took precedence after that.
And the thing that struck me as you recounted that was you had to be in pain beyond what most of us can even comprehend. And as you were talking to God, it wasn't so much that you were worried about you. It was, I hope my mom can understand.
Yeah.
I hope my dad respected me for what I did. I hope my brother can become the oldest sibling. Even through that time, you were like thinking of other people, as you went through all that, which I thought speaks volumes about your character. And I fast forward now, I think has to have helped you in some ways, kind of through the recovery process, as having that mindset.
Definitely. It was, I guess at the time, being like an 18, 19-year-old, that was the first thing that popped into my head. I seen so many friends at that point, about 14 of them die around us. And the one thing that I always noticed with loved ones was they were trying to figure out why. And, that's the main question. When you lose somebody, the question is always why. Like, that's the biggest thing. So for me, it was asking God to make sure my mom knew why, and to understand and to be okay with it, because I think that's what eats a lot of us up, even till today, man. Like, every time I get a phone call saying we lost a buddy at home, the questions always stop flowing. And the number one question I always ask myself is why? Like, I'm here.
And that's something, you talk about losing different people. I know you're very active with like suicide awareness and prevention. And something that struck me recently is, we've lost a bunch, but we lost Neil Curry, who's, very well respected and liked in the 2A community. And by all accounts, when you watch what was going on social media, he had the perfect life. He had the family, the wife, the business. He had just opened a new Black Rifle Coffee location, and it looked like everything was the American dream.
Yeah.
And
not
then
without a doubt. I mean, I literally had just talked to Neil a couple of days before, all that, before they went out to the lake. Because I had just, like I mentioned earlier to you guys before we started the podcast, we just bought a house and we got a little bit of acreage in the back. So I sent a picture of the, from the satellite view to Neil, like, hey, this is what we got. And immediately he was like, where's my cabin going? And I'm like, right here. And he's like, I like that spot. And I'm like, of course you do. It's right next to the feeder. Like, why wouldn't you want to be there? And that was it. And, it was, I love you and I'll see you soon type deal thing. We were supposed to go on a mountain lion hunt together and all these things. And literally, I was at home with my videographer. We were just kind of hanging out. We were about to make some funny, epic content, the stuff that I put out. And I got the call and one of my buddies is like, tell me it's not true. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, I heard Neil passed. And I was like, dude, shut up. Like, I don't have time. Like, I'll call you later. I'm doing this. And I immediately picked up the phone and called Neil like about 100 times and nothing. And then, just started reaching out to people that were with him. And then, Shirley was confirmed. And I'm not going to lie, Scott, this one hit me really rough just because of all the things you mentioned. Neil was a very happy person, was outgoing, loved everybody, was kind to everybody. This guy was beloved in the community more than I can express or say because he was truly one of a kind.
And I've never heard anybody say a bad word about him. I only had online interactions. We sold some stuff to his store, Ready Gunner. But even that, you could tell he was always responsive,
Yeah, he was a stand-up guy. I mean, at his eulogy, you should have just heard all the stories that people had to say about him. And there were nothing but good things. And I think especially hit me hard because last year I lost my brother around December 26th. And I was headed to Utah to go do a mountain lion hunt with him and his in-laws. And I was in the truck. I had literally just landed, got in the truck. And as soon as I landed, I got the call and Neil was there. And Neil kind of gave me a hug and was like, dude, I love you. Like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I appreciate you. And then he opened up and shared, that he had a brother who struggled with drugs. And when Neil was in basic training, his brother had an overdose and passed away. And then later on, he told me he lost another brother because he came from five. There's five of them. And he had lost two brothers. And, I was like, man, like, I just don't know how you do it. I was like, this is my only brother. Like, I don't know where to go from here. And, we shared a little bit of stories. We sat there together until I was able to grab another plane and fly home. So that meant the world to me. And he was just that type of guy that he just kind of wanted to be there. He's like, dude, let me get off. Let me stay here with you. And I was like, it's okay. And he was like, I know what you're going through. Like, let me be there for you. And it just, that meant the world to me. So when I got the call, like it literally, it tore me apart. It was unexpected. I had, it was just, I think it caught everybody by, I don't even know. Like I was just, I'm lost for words. I literally had nothing when we were there at the funeral.
So what do you recommend to people that when, we see somebody online and everything looks okay?
Yeah.
And I know, in talking to other people that have gone through very similar, they try to be very active in reaching out and, and this, like that part of it really hit me hard as I was reading your book, because you talked about how you had gotten to the low point of your life and you thought you were a burden to your family.
Yeah.
And without your mom even knowing it, she came in and talked to you and gave you inspiration through your niece that I believe hadn't even been born yet.
Yeah.
And that was kind of at least the way I read it as I was reading the book, that was kind of your turning point to, it's more than this is more than just me. It's about other people too.
Yeah, that definitely was a very key instrumental day for me. My mom walking in, because at that point, I mean, I was a 21-year-old, couldn't wipe my ass, couldn't do anything, couldn't tie my shoelaces. Like, here I am, my mother's taking care of me, my mom's like wiping my butt, like doing all these things that a mother shouldn't be doing to a 21-year-old. And to me, those things were a burden. I knew that I wasn't ever going to be able to go back into the fight. I knew that my life wasn't ever going to be the same. So I just felt more of useless. I felt like I was a burden to them. I felt like I had taken so much from them, because my mother had just opened up her beauty salon, and then she had to shut it down to come take care of me. So there was a lot of things that were stacking up against me, that I felt like I was more of a burden to people than anything else. So that was definitely one of those things where I was very, very wrong. She walked in, and, she was telling me about my niece, Haley, and, can't wait for you to hold her, and all these things that, we talk about in the book. And that ultimately, like, made me realize that I was being selfish, that it wasn't just about me, that it was the village that got me here. And for me to leave the village abruptly and not say anything was going to be an injustice to so many people. And not just my family, the people that, spend numerous hours in the hospital keeping me alive and bringing me back and keeping me stable. And, I'm walking here because of them. It was just so many things that I was like, you know what, like, this is definitely not it. And at that point, I had hit the lowest point in my life. So I bounced back, and I said, you know what, this is not me. This is not my fighting spirit. Like, I got to get back to trying to help others. And that's always been the ultimate goal, is to help others, because we don't know what people are dealing with. I think as humans, we're very prideful, and there's a stigma that, when you look and ask for help, that it's a sign of weakness. And I keep telling people it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength, because you're telling somebody, look, I am vulnerable right now. I don't feel that I'm capable of doing things. I need help. Please help me. And I think that's a lot that speaks higher volumes when it comes to asking for help, because you're asking for help. It takes strength to even ask for help. So that I see the problem that's going on, and I always wanted to help and be a solution. And like I've mentioned earlier, like, I've been given a platform by people that follow me, and I just want to make sure that those people that are following me, a lot of them are veterans, military, service members. I just want to let them know that, look, it's okay to be, feeling like that. It's okay, but it's also okay to get help. It's okay to reach out to people. It's okay to use, the 1-800 numbers. It's okay to reach out to your, higher command. If you've been in combat, and if you've suffered through the things that we've been through in combat, losing people next to you, it's not normal. It's war. It's something that a lot of people in this world are never going to experience. And you did as a young 18, 19-year-old. And how do we, how do you cope with that? You can't, at 19 years old, you're supposed to be in a university, you're supposed to be going to football games. You're supposed to be out drinking with your buddies and having fun and making memories, not being in a third world country, stopping, a main artery because your buddy's bleeding to death. Like, it's okay. Like, even though we train for it, even though we're we have all this training telling us what to do and how to react and how to shoot and how to operate and whatnot. All those things are great, but they're not, you can't train to what your mind wants to do and how you're going to feel after certain things. I specifically remember coming back after firefights and after, taking out my first enemy combatant for the first time. Like, I literally sat back and I was like, whoa, like, I literally just shut that dude's lights out. How do I feel as a person taking out another person? Like, this is not this is God's, job is to, do that, not me. Like I should not be doing this. But I was very fortunate enough to have talked to the chaplain, and the chaplain was like, "Hey, listen, what you did today saved all your buddies' lives. If you would have taken that guy out, he would have taken everybody out. So like you got to look at it that way. We're here to do a job, and ultimately you did your job." And so that helped me cope with it. And then after that, not necessarily got easier, but I got to the understanding of why I was doing what I was doing. And a lot of people don't get that satisfaction sometimes to know why they're there, or um, they might not be mentally strong when they thought they were. I mean, the mind is an amazing thing. It's the biggest muscle that we have, and once you let it, consume you, you're done. You can't let that muscle take over, because it will do things that you never thought you could. And so I always try to tell people, like, get your mental health right. It's okay. Like, reach out, and that's what I want to do. I want to be able to kill the stigma that men don't ask for help. We need to, and we're here for one another. Like, reach out, pick up that phone, call that number, call your battle buddy, call your dad, call whoever you have that's important to you, and tell them, like, look, I'm struggling, I need help, and just go from there.
And I think that's so important. And I know for myself, I've never served and I can't relate to that part of it, but I did lose a sister back in 2017. And you try to bottle all that up, and it's not till you start talking to people that you realize how many other people have gone through something similar.
Yeah.
And, sometimes telling your story helps them, or telling your story, they can help you better.
Yeah.
And I was struck by, in the book, you, I know you're big into hunting and shooting now. Were you always that way? Because I know when you went on that first hunt, like after the injury and everything, Chris Kyle was very instrumental in helping you. And I thought the neat thing about that was, here's this legendary sniper with records and all that, and you talked to him through the night, all night, and in the morning you had no idea what he had all accomplished, because he was concerned about making sure you were okay.
Yeah. That just pretty much defines our friendship. I think you seem to attract people the same way that you are. And no, growing up, I wasn't an avid hunter. Growing up in Brownsville, South Texas, in a very low income family, hunting wasn't a priority. It was, getting a job, putting, food on the table, and being able to provide and keep the lights on. That's what my parents were focused on. My dad did take us shooting a couple of times here and there, but it was never something that was, for us. Like, we never really hunted. So I was always interested in it. I always heard all my buddies talk about, like, oh man, I went on a turkey hunt this weekend with my dad, or, we went to our land and so and shot this deer and la 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 la. And I was always interested in it. I was like, man, that sounds like fun. Like, you get to spend time with your dad, like outside of the house, and he's not working and you're hunting. Like, that's awesome. Like, I want to do that. So that was always there. So when I was invited to go hunt with them and spend the weekend, I was very excited, because I wanted to be in the outdoors. I wanted to see what the fuss was all about. I wanted to see why so many people love the outdoors, and just try to understand it. And then after that weekend, it was an addiction that just took over. I loved it, every little thing about it, and spending it with Chris, and then making that like a thing that we got to do every year. And we started becoming very, like, close because of hunting. We learned a lot about each other, and there was a lot of, like, talks in those blinds. And he kind of opened up my eyes to a lot of things. And even himself opening up on things that he was struggling with was a big thing for me, because after I learned who he was and the things that he had accomplished and military career, for him to be able to open up and say, look, I'm struggling with this, that was a big thing for me, because I was like, man, like, you put your issues aside for one night while I was hunting with you to make sure that I was okay. So, like, that spoke volumes to me, and I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. And, once he was taken from us, I think I took that even more seriously to help others if I could.
And I think you do a tremendous job of that, both by like your messaging and then also by the way you live, because when I see you at events or trade shows, you always have a smile on your face. Even little things like the stuff you've done as far as like lifting weights since your injury.
Yeah.
Setting, the story that you tell in the book about like when you started to deadlift without a lot of training, and just even the amount of weight that you were able to pull is incredible. I'm sitting there reading that. I'm like, I got two good legs and I can't pull anything close to that.
Yeah, definitely. Man, it's such a weird thing, I guess. We never know how athletic we really are until you actually push your body to a certain limit. And honestly, for me, it was more of a getting back there, getting in shape. Not only that, like, I've always been such a competitive person. I don't like people treating me different than anything else just because I look different and I might have what you think it's a disability. To me, it's not. It's an ability. Like, and I like to prove people wrong. And if I can sit in a room and know that I can lift way more weight than half of those dudes there with able limbs, that kind of like boosts my ego a little bit. I'm like, you know what? Like, try. I dare you to try. And not only that, there's a lot of other veterans in the community that are, that have one leg and are lifting and stuff. And that to me was a very competitive thing. I was like, you know what? Like, if anything, I'm going to be the strongest cripple to walk this earth. And I challenge these other guys to step up. And, when we were at Sornex, I was deadlifting like 695, 700 pounds. And maybe 75% of the people that were there would never, ever in their lives lift that much weight. It just made me happy to show them that, like, it's all right here. It's all mental. It's every little thing that you think you can't do is because you're blocking yourself. You're shutting yourself off. You're telling yourself, I can't do this, without even trying. So like that was kind of the thing. I just wanted to get back and show people that, like, just live your life to the fullest, have fun, enjoy it, be competitive, I feel like we're in a time where men can't be men anymore. You can't go out and just pound your chest and all these things. I feel like everybody's trying to keep you in this bubble and be soft and be this. Like, you can be a freaking beast, but also be a kind person. You can definitely be a man and be brutal and walk around and pound your chest, but be kind to others and love others and just be there for everybody. Be part of your community. Love everybody. I always tell people, I feel like I'm like this violent hippie. Like, I'm here, but I love everybody. I love all walks of people. Like, if a certain thing makes you happy, do that. If this, whatever the case is, like, I just wanted to show people that you can do all these things. Like, don't limit yourself. Just keep going. Lift weights or go hunting. For me, those were my outlets. Those are my outlets every single day. Like, I wake up, I walk into the garage, I get a workout, I go to the range, I get ready for hunting season, and share the outdoors with everybody. My nieces and nephews are at an age where they want to do it now. And that was one of the best moments of my life was when I took one of my nephews hunting, and I didn't take the other one because the other one, he never really showed the interest of going to the range or shooting and stuff like that. Like, they have their own little 22s in my safe, but as he got a little older now, he's like, hey, I want to go shooting more often. And, this past summer, they always stay with my wife and I every summer. They spend about 3 weeks here. And me and my little nephew, Frankie, were talking about, like, hey, so, like, this is where we're going to go after this year. Like, we got to get you ready for whitetail season. Like, we got to start doing this. And my nephew, Caesar, was like, hey, how come you don't take me hunting? And I looked over and I was like, wait, but I didn't think you wanted to go hunting, buddy. I'm sorry. He goes, yeah, Uncle, I want to hunt too. Like, I want to go hunting. And I got a little, like, it honestly, like, my heart was full because I was like, yes, I'm going to take my two nephews and go hunting. And then my nieces were like, well, when do we get to go hunt? I'm like, yes. I'm like, come on. Like, I'm going to be broke by the end of hunting season, but we're going to make this happen. I'm like, I want to plant that seed in them. And I didn't want to push it on them. You know what I mean? Like I think there's a lot of people that get certain sports or activities pushed on them by their parents because, their parents want to vicariously live through these kids.
Absolutely.
And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to push it on them, but they all show the interest on their own. And I was like, this is going to be easy because they want to do it and they're going to pay attention. They're going to listen to all those things. So yeah, it just, sorry, I got off track there, but
oh no.
Yeah, it literally just, it's what it was. It was just me trying to prove other people that, yeah, you may look at me different and you think that I'm disabled, but once I step on that platform, I don't care if you got two legs. I don't care if you're white, purple, orange. I don't give a damn. I'm here to beat you.
Yeah. And that you've done. You set a couple world records.
Yeah. And, so they say.
and I go back to, even like that first hunting trip you took, or one of your first hunting trips that you document in the book, you laid in bed and almost didn't go on that trip because of exactly what you just talked about. Are they going to judge me because I look a little different or whatever it might be?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was huge.
And just taking that next step and doing that. And something else that I was reading through there that I was struck by is when you were having one of your many surgeries, you told them that you love to shoot.
Yeah.
So they need to take that into account when they're operating on you so you can still pull the trigger, which I thought was, as a gun guy, I thought it was very interesting. But, back to what you were talking about earlier, just weird how the human mind works and the stuff that you think of when you're going into something like that.
Without a doubt. I mean, I think that was a priority, right? It was I knew that I wanted to do a bunch of different things when I got out, and I knew shooting was going to be a big part of my life without really realizing where that would lead me to today. But I was like, listen, here's my index finger. It's all jacked up. You need to make it in the L where I can still pull the trigger. And I got very lucky because the doctor that was operating on me happened to be a military doctor. And before he became a doctor, he was a ground pounder like me. He was like, I'm a grunt too. He's like, I get it. He's like, I will take care of you. And I'm like, cool. So he met every requirement and everything I asked for. And honestly, that it was such a cool thing to be able to ask something from a doctor, even though how jacked up my hands were, you know what I mean? They made it happen. So I was very excited about it. And it changed my perspective on a lot of things. It was awesome.
Well, that's really neat. And I lost my train of thought there. So like with all the different options and stuff that are out there now, how do you feel physically? I'm sure there's still all sorts of pain every day. I follow you on Instagram and I see that there's different times that you're dealing with issues with your leg and different things. But like with some of the technology that has advanced in terms of all that, how do you feel like on a day-to-day basis?
So, yeah, that's a very interesting question, just for the simple fact that the technology and advancement that the prosthetic world has made is amazing. I mean, we're at an era where like we created a prosthetic for me to deadlift up to 1,000 pounds, which is insane, but it's there. It's met that requirement. We've done all those things. The one thing that we're still lacking advancement in and research is burns. This is a well-known statistic that we are still practicing procedures that were done during the Vietnam era. There's not a lot of research out there on burns. And this is why I started working with a nonprofit called Sons of the Flag. My buddy Ryan Parrott, who was a former Navy SEAL, got blown up in Iraq, got burned a little bit, came home. And then he quickly realized that there wasn't a lot of extensive research or any procedures being out there for us that could help us. So now we're literally raising money so that we can approach some of these doctors and be like, hey, look, we will pay for your school if you become a doctor that is specializing in burns. We fund some hospitals to do more extensive research on other things of like how to grow better skin or, cadaver skin, things like that. Um, but yeah, it's great being involved with them because it's opened up a lot of my eyes. I've done a lot of surgeries that have helped me. But with that being said, the burns and the skin and the things that I struggle every day, I'm in pain quite a bit. I'm not, if not every day, or there's always issues, or like right now, I'm battling an infection on my skin from a pore that, because I only have about 25% of my body where I can sweat. And when I sweat profoundly. And that tends to cause, ingrown hairs and infections and things like that. And I'm battling one of those. I'm on antibiotics right now, and I got a flight of Maine to, go hunt a moose, but that ain't going to stop me because, I know that I'm 36 right now, but I know that when I'm 50 or 55, I realize this, and I know for a fact that my body's not going to be the same as it is now. I'm not going to be, young like I am now, move around and do the things that I do. So I want to take advantage of them now. So when I'm, sitting in the front porch with my wife drinking coffee in the morning, I can literally look back at my life and be like, I'm content. I'm happy. I did things that I wanted to do. I made the world laugh. I made the world understand that if they need help, we're all here. We're one tribe. I kept my brother's memories alive. I served my country, and just a bunch of other different things that I kind of wanted to accomplish before, I sit on that front porch and just kind of fade away into the sunset.
That's incredible. So to kind of wrap this up, if somebody's going through, I don't even think adversity is a strong enough word for what you went through, but if somebody's, at a low point in their life and they can't necessarily find that one thing to kind of, they can pivot on or whatever, what advice do you have for somebody like that? If they were come to you and say, like I know you had your mom come talk to you, your family and Haley, but yeah, let's say they don't have that. What advice would you have for them?
To definitely not give up. I mean, you definitely got to find your niche thing, right? There's so many activities out there, and don't just go based off of what I'm doing and what others are doing. Go find what you love doing, something interesting to you that keeps your mind busy, that keeps you going, that whether it be roasting coffee, whether it be landscaping or whatever it is that gets you going. Just keep at it. Find the thing that you love and that you find a passion for, and go from there, because it's not easy. Like it took me a few years to realize that these are the things that I wanted to do before I got to the point where I'm at. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while for you to really find what it is that makes you happy, and brings you back to that. And surround yourself with good people. If you're hanging out with people who are constantly complaining about their lives, complaining about how horrible everything is, and are just always nagging, you don't need to be around those people. Like, let them branch out on their own. Focus on you, your mental health, and focus on hanging out with people that bring some sort of value into your life, and vice versa. You bring something positive into those people's lives and make it better than it was when you met them, because that's what it's about. It's about helping each other, growing with each other, and being able to be there for someone when they can't be there for you, and vice versa. So just keep your head up high, keep after it. Like, I can't express enough. Life is a beautiful thing. It's amazing, and we're here for a very, very, very short time. I mean, a lot of people don't live past 80. And I mean, if you look at it, that's not that long. Like that's definitely not long. So just live an epic life, love it. Don't be focused so much on trying to keep up with everybody, do these things. Do what you want to do, be happy, and just learn to love 100%. Like, just love everybody, and honestly, just just be there for everybody and love everybody and just be happy, enjoy life because it's short.
That is tremendous. Such good advice. And
I told you I was a hippie.
well, and you said something earlier too that I think we could all learn from is, you said when you're going to be 50, 55, 60, you may not be able to do some of those things. But I think so many of us, even if we haven't been through what you've been through, we just expect that we're going to be able to do all that when we're 65 or 70. And that's not always the case. I mean, there's things that happen. So, to your point, go do things now while you can.
Yeah.
And enjoy them.
Yeah.
And so a much more lighthearted question that I got to ask you.
Yeah.
Is how do we fix the Cowboys? 'Cause I'm a diehard Cowboys fan. I always have been.
Oh, man, we can do another hour-long podcast with this.
It's really hard to explain to my kids why I'm a Cowboys fan. They're like, they've never won. I'm like, well, they won before you guys were born. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, man. We have a lot of work to do. I think, it's just a lot of these things don't make sense. And, touching on football, that's another thing. Like a lot of people always get worked up. Like, you watch football? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, oh, I hate football. And I'm like, whatever, because they look at it at the political side of all the things that went down. But every time I see a player on the field, like I relate to that person. I'm like, look, I know the hard work that it takes. I know what it takes to a collegiate level. And then from there to the pros and what these people been through and the money that they're making. It's not just going to them. It's helping a bunch of other people. But anyways, we need a lot of help. I think we need a new quarterback. We need a new running back. We need Jerry Jones to go relax on a beach somewhere and let someone else run the team.
He needs to go sit on your porch and drink coffee with you and let somebody else do that.
Hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Black Rifle, we are the official coffee of the Cowboys. So he needs to come over, let me make him a pour over, hang out, and just chill out, and let someone else be the GM and run that team. And it's just crazy. It's a love-hate relationship with the Cowboys.
I can definitely relate. So where can people? I assume I bought the book on Amazon, but I assume you can buy the book wherever books are sold.
Yes. So as of now, we're Amazon primarily, but you can go on Barnes and Nobles and any other websites that sell books. They're slowly getting them. It's kind of hard to get in with some of those people sometimes, but we are starting to send some their way. But Amazon does a pretty good job of getting it there like the next day.
And I can't recommend it enough. I laughed through part of it. I had tears in my eyes through part of it. And then I had anger through part of it as, you kind of even revisited sitting in your desk when 9/11 happened in your history class.
Yeah. It was sophomore high school.
Yeah. Where can people, if they don't know, where can they follow you and all the organizations and companies that you work with? Is Instagram the best place?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. If you want to see more long content, we usually put out more on YouTube and stuff like that. But every single platform is just Crispy11B.
Well, Omar, this was awesome. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for taking the time. Good luck on your hunt tomorrow.
Woo, we'll see how it goes. I'm excited. I can't wait.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And as always, if you ever have questions or comments, please hit us up at podcast@volquartsen.com.